back in the day used to dream in black and white a lot more than color.
That's
But
so interesting.
these days, not so much. It's very rare these days because,
See, I would love to actually see dreams on a large scale like that. Because right now I'm just working with a lot of people who are obviously are alive and experience stuff now and are younger. But to not even just go with this era, but like how you were saying with the Egyptians have their dream logs still thing, and they're usually hidden very deep. So it's really weird. And this is why it gets very trippy sometimes with the lane of work, because it's like, okay, uh,
right, are they completely external entities? Like, or is it a gray area there, you know?
really great. You have to really pay attention to what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you.
Okay, beautiful world. We are live. I'm a minute late, but that's not too bad for me considering my track record. Um, I'm hoping, last minute, of course, I couldn't find the piece for my mic, but I got the other one hooked up. I hope we're okay on volume. I'm gonna check right now, actually. We have the official second interview with Chelsey Turpening Coxsey, the dream analyst and self-help coach and author of the book series Living Life Metaphorically.
Looks like it's adding her.
Hi,
See, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
We got it. I'm doing great. I was like a minute late, but that's okay. I'm always late.
I'm a little bit too. That's fine.
So how have you been?
Good. Just been relaxing the last couple days with all the holiday stuff, but I'm doing well.
I saw that Soul of Circle workshop that you did.
Yeah,
And
that was good.
I know you said to like leave comments, but there's just too much to say. And like, where do I begin?
Okay.
Just like the circle, it's never ending, and there's no clear beginning. But
It's a
there,
really cool space. So
I
what did you get from it? Or
well, I got a lot from it. I enjoyed the concept. I mean, I never thought of the spirit of the circle, like almost personifying it, personifying a shape, a figurative shape. I never thought of it in that type of aspect.
yeah.
But and still, although I think that's interesting and fun to think about, I still don't necessarily feel personally that like the shape of a circle has a soul. But like I see the point of it. I think I think that shape is the like the foundation of all souls. I really do. And
Yeah, like a mass collective aspect of it being used.
right, the like in sacred geometry, the seed of life is made up of a series of circles, and then that sprout. It's you start with one circle, then you add a circle, you get the Vesica Pisces, and then you add another one, you get the seed of life. Then you get the flower of life. Eventually, you get the tree of life, which also represents the symbol of the Kabbalah, and
Yeah.
all and I mean I do believe that's like and if you think about like cymatics and shapes and how frequencies make shapes, you see those same symbols. I've talked about this a lot. You see those same
Yeah.
circular symbols in cymatics, the shape of sound. So like
That's yeah.
I mean there's just I mean what else? Uh what did the one guy talk about? The Ouroboros, the snake eating itself.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I forgot
I mean,
about that.
I made a whole song about different places around. There are different cultures throughout history that have used that symbol. Or I made a whole verse about it in a song. Like that's there's so many places, so many different cultures, and it's been represented in so many different ways. And then like come full circle to modern day, uh, when the guy was trying to discover um, the scientist who discovered the chemical structure of benzene, I believe it was, and he said he discovered it in a dream. And in the scientific
Mhm.
community, it's one of the most popular stories of dream phenomena. phenomena. He talks about how he studied it for years and worked on that problem for years, and then in a dream he saw the structure, and in the dream it was represented as two snakes in a helix, and that's what he had always struggled with. And then the snake wrapped around and they started eating each other's tails, and that's when it clicked for him. And you know, just so much. Like, and that, you know, that is, and that symbol, that's the same symbol, that's the Ouroboros, basically, that goes way back into ancient history. I'm sure you're aware of that.
No, it's a lot of synchronicity with it. And it was interesting because we just picked a random symbol and we're like the circle, you know, because like I'm always kind of relating to the circle just with the way I study and learn information. It's always like going in a circle, right, in life.
It is. I mean, it's the foundation of life.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, I found it to be like a very deep concept. And it's at the moment on my YouTube channel, it's the most watched video. It beats all of the other videos out of the water. Like, so I thought that was cool. But so like when the guy who saw the breakdown of that in his dream, I think even though it probably does have like this, I agree with how you were describing the soul aspect of symbolism. That's kind of how I would view it too. But I mean, in a way, we're all one large soul, kind of split down, right? So it still matches the idea with the energy of symbolism having its own energy about it. But with that dream, though, I always say this about the subconsciousness. I was like, don't underestimate it. And like a lot of the times we will consciously trip over a lot of these things, but when we're dreaming and we're conscious, like relax, our subconsciousness will like do the work and figure it out for us because it's got all the information and it almost knows more than the conscious aspect of ourselves, and that's in that way. So it's really cool to see that when people are sleeping, they're problem solving a lot of stuff. And it's really been a huge part of even like human, you know, like as a human race, you know, with certain inventions, problem solving certain things we needed, like that didn't just benefit one person, but it benefited all of us.
Yeah, there's countless stories throughout history of major discoveries coming in dreams. It's
cool.
It's amazing. And art, a lot of art. You know, Van Gogh said, "I dream of painting, and then I paint my dreams."
Yep.
You know,
I've had dreams where I was writing before, or like writing on air,
right,
a story, something.
Me too, kinda. And what else? You know, MC Escher, his melting clocks. He said that was inspired by a dream.
That's cool.
The Yesterday, you know, I think Paul McCartney from the Beatles said he wrote the song Yesterday, was inspired in a dream. There's so much. It's so prevalent in technology and in art and in society.
Yeah. I've had dreams where I study in my library. Like it feels almost like out of body or something, but it's very dreamy too. And I'm like in my office space with my books and everything, and I'm like walking around or floating around just reading it. And one of them I had not even read the book yet, but it was a microbiology book that I had, and that was what I was studying in my dream. So I was like, oh, maybe I need to go read it.
Did you?
Yeah, a little bit. I haven't gotten into it yet. My subconscious is probably like, you're supposed to be studying this. I do find it fascinating, though.
Yeah,
there's a lot of micro and macro, so it's always fun to study the different spaces.
Right? Yeah, I agree. So, so much to say, and there was something I wanted to say, and I already forgot it.
I'm sure.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about is like, have you, working with your clients and in your own experience, have you ever experienced like time lapse in dreams, or time, like, you know, maybe you dreamed overnight but it felt like it was months or weeks in a dream or something like that? Or have you heard of that?
Not that it's come across my desk, but I'm familiar with the concept. The one I see that happens more often is the looping. That seems to happen a lot more, at least in the space that I have with everyone. But no, I mean, I don't know. You know, time can be a funny thing in dreams. But like I would imagine we're still consciously always thinking of time, so like that would be normal to have that. Why?
Yeah.
I feel like you
Well,
want to lead into something like that.
well, no, there's so much. There's so many different directions to take that in. But I mean, really, I'm curious. Like, I know, are all of your workshops recorded on videos and documented in that sense, or do you do like private workshops?
I did at first. I was making them private, but then I recently started getting into the YouTube and trying to have digital content like that. So I started recording like 2 months ago, but I haven't done a workshop in like over a month at this point. So I'm a little behind on it.
So when you were doing it with your clients before, were you keeping like detailed notes? Do you keep like things to reference and to get a broader picture, maybe like statistical data and stuff? Because I know you're early in the journey, but think about it like some years down the line,
I
you
am doing
know?
maybe not so much with the workshops, but I do remember a lot of people's stories. And it's so there's I actually this is gonna be like my first like more studious book, and I started writing the notes down, but it's a lot of information, so I need to get back to it, which is better a couple months down the road because I've already like let the information roll around versus
Right.
just typing it out right away.
Much
So like
better.
when I sign contracts with people, I do mention that I'm working on this project and that, you know, if they would like for me to share their dreams, I can do it with or without their name or, you know what I mean, and use it.
That's good.
Um, so like I do want to do that, and I just haven't gotten to the point where I've gathered it up yet. But it's the concept of like the being in the coach's chair and what it looks like for me seeing all of it. And I do sometimes call it data
It
because
is.
it does, you know, like
It is.
especially when I'm working with like metaphysical stuff, but even the internal family system is really unique. And I've been learning a lot
Mhm.
just from what I've studied, and then having it applied in the sessions is like a different, it's very different and unique per person too. So
Of
it's like,
course.
it's, I find it very fascinating to explore. Um, so I always kind of
Yeah,
giggle. I'm really getting in people's heads.
yeah. I just think, and that's what I'm thinking, yeah, from a coach's perspective, like you can get a broad point of view once you get enough data to start to cross-reference things, you know, maybe you can find collective patterns and stuff, you know. That's what excites me.
There's definitely a lot. Like, it's really interesting when you look at it in different phases too. Like, so I'm starting to notice that there is a certain pattern that comes about when we first start doing sessions.
Hmm.
Um, Not everyone though, like some people might be having like more metaphysical experiences, so it jump right into that. But we usually tend to work out the internal family system first, which can take a good portion of a year. But then we also have soul stuff going on and like some metaphysical experiences. And each person's a
Hmm.
little unique with that, depending on like how much they're experiencing. Um, but so it tends to go from the internal self-discovery first, and then I've noticed it turns into what I call like a soul discovery, where you're really experiencing things outside of yourself too. And that's kind of just the
Right.
little terms I've dubbed it.
Yeah, because I learned relatively recently that like ancient Egyptians kept real tedious records of dreams, and they took it very serious. I mean, we all know that they took it seriously from the Book
Yeah.
of the Dead and stuff, but I found out that there's literally thousands of different translated dreams from ancient Egyptian history. And
I
I
would love to own a copy.
seriously, well, now the issue is I'm trying to look them up, and you got to find different ones from different sources. There's no like collective body of all of them, if you know what I mean. So
Um,
I think that'd be a great idea. Maybe that's something I'll compile into a book. That's a good
yeah.
idea.
Um,
But
I find the dreams, like in my book, I have little small bits of dreams, you know, with mixed in with creative writing, but like, I don't analyze any of it for people in the books because I want them to read the symbolism from their own emotional connection to it and kind of help
sure,
fill in the gaps, right?
of
Plus also
course.
maybe challenge them to learn it because it is kind of like its own language. So like once you get the energy of the symbolism in that aspect, you get really good. It's like another language basically.
Symbolism is the language, yes.
It is. It's really cool. So I'm like, I can only speak English, right, as a verbal language, but symbolism is what I consider my second language.
Yeah, you got. I mean, it's tough to get well versed in that because just like regular language, it's like I said, it's nuanced, and there's certain things that have double meanings, and just like actual language, you know.
Yeah. It's very unique, and that's the cool thing about it. It's never black and white, and it always changes with the, let's say, the dreamer, right? Whatever you feel it means the morning you wake up, if you think back on it a couple months down the road, it's going to still mean that, but have way more depthness to it, and you're going to realize like there was this bit of an evolution with it.
Right, the
Um,
narrow picture at first, and
yeah,
the picture gets broad. Yeah.
and and something I've been realizing more as I'm working with more of my soul and like trying to really understand and then apply some of these shamanic practices to myself, going because I do sessions with one of my friends, Olga, and I'm learning a lot just being in that space with her. And it's funny
Me
because
too.
the way the soul presents itself is also a very symbolic nature too.
Hmm.
So I'm like, our subconsciousness speaks symbolism, our soul speaks symbolism. I mean, we see
Right.
this all over the place. So it's really interesting, like to, you kind of have to be familiar with it a little bit.
Yeah, I've been watching those videos with Olga. They're interesting. I enjoy those.
Yeah.
Uh, so Ashley says hi. Erica says hi. My sister says hi. Cliff is in the house,
Yes.
and Helen, she's back. She said use spreadsheets to record data. You can sort in different ways, subject, symbolism. Yeah, I think when farther down the line, in a few years, when you have like a solid body of data, you should
Yeah.
take some spreadsheets. And I know it's like time
Mhm.
consuming and not fun. It's very left brained, you know, and like, but I think it could be
Good.
valuable.
I gave myself a 3 to 5 year space to work on it, so I definitely wanted it to cover like a good gap of like my beginning of the career into it. So first year down, not bad at all.
You're doing good. Uh, you also you want to get into hypnosis, which I think can go hand in hand with dream analysis.
Totally, yeah.
That's why I hope you're not gonna just leave dream analysis kind of behind, because they
Yeah.
could benefit each other so much, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure you
that's
know.
I wanted to do with the hypnosis because there's times where it's necessary, or I could see how it'd be necessary to bring in. Plus, like I could do like meditations. That someday I would like to be able to actually record some meditations that walk people maybe back to trigger memories for dreams or
Yeah,
tricks.
yeah.
That's still something I'm. Sometimes I feel like I want to start exploring it now, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait a little bit more because like,
Build your
oh, it
fan.
doesn't help when you got kids running around everywhere. Not very meditative space.
I get it. I get it. I believe me,
Yeah,
100%.
and yeah, because you got littles too.
Oh yeah.
They're noisy. And then I really have been getting very fond of shamanism, and I would love to get certified in that at some point too.
Hmm.
Just to bring all this knowledge of like the soul, how to work with the soul or help the soul, do the psychological, symbolic aspects of dreams,
Yeah.
and then some of maybe the tougher spots really dig into hypnosis. I think they
Yeah.
all, or would work well together.
Oh, they do 100%, and you can fill a lot of the gaps, you know, with
Yeah.
different methods. That's
Yeah,
good.
and no, it's funny because one of my clients, I had a couple of my people show up for that workshop, the Soul of the Circle.
Hmm.
And just as an example, client that's been with me the longest, I call him my guinea pig because he's my free one, and I worked with him from the beginning.
Yeah.
So he was saying, so he used to do meditation coaching sessions with one chick who was teaching people how to meditate, and he had that
Okay.
meditation with us at the workshop because I have never experienced a meditation like that before. Like that
Yeah.
was really weird. And I was like, that's funny. I was like, what was your meditation coach teaching you?
Yeah. Seriously though.
I was like, this is the good stuff. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
it's
the juice
very,
right there.
yeah, I was like, you really tap into another energy and, and you get to use your imagination, symbols. There's so much in that space. It's more than just being quiet and not letting the
Hmm.
engines roll.
So much more. I agree. Yeah, I'm sure you've
Yeah,
seen
so I'd
sometimes
like
they
to
use,
incorporate those. So anyone who could meditate like that, I say add that
right,
to your dream journal because those are just about as important, really, and they probably will tie in interesting ways. Um,
100%. Yeah.
kind of the same space. So
I want to make a book. Definitely want to write a very simple, straightforward book on how to effectively use a dream journal. And then, maybe I'll make it like a PDF and someone buys one of my dream journals, I'll give them the free PDF on how to use it and stuff. Because I wanted to make dream journal. I'm curious, what type of dream journal do you use? Is it like a leather bound, or is it like is it like a handmade fairy journal? Okay. Okay,
I've
yeah, yeah,
got
okay.
loose. I was using just loose paper for a couple years, but I did condense my space down, so I
Mhm.
switched to a journal.
Yeah.
Um, no, I want to make a dream journal too. I think it's a really good tool just to add to like whatever program you're building, and like if you have it like digital or a print off. Um,
Well, my issue with that is that like there's so many different ways to go about it. Like one thing that I think is that like even if you're not experiencing dreams or anything, just write something down before you go to bed, how you're feeling. Then wake up or write down how you're feeling when you wake up, because a lot of people say they don't have nothing to write down, but they
your
do.
feelings are a huge part of your
Yeah.
dreams. Even the symbolism, and yeah, the way we
Yeah.
even interact with symbolism is emotional.
It,
You know,
it,
it's all about the emotions.
It really is at that level. And not just that, but just getting into the habit of writing before you go to sleep and when you wake up and thinking about dreams, with your journal. I think subconsciously it'll kind of plant that seed.
Yeah, that's
So,
a really great idea, actually. See, I didn't think of that, but I always say, like, if you wanted to set more intention, you could like meditate while you fall asleep. Like, just meditate into the space, and then, if you want to set intention specifically to experience something or to explore, um, like that tends to help. But
yeah, that's what I'll put in the book, and then I'll say write that down. Write down how you feel after that meditation. Things like that. But that's
yeah,
why I don't think I want to make a dream book like a PDF that's like a structured book, if you know what I mean. I think just blank pieces of notebook are necessary because sometimes I
some,
say you can just draw pictures, draw doodles or whatever, draw shapes. So I don't want to give someone like a structured book to where it would have to hold them to any type of standard. I think it should be free flowing. But I want to write a separate book just to give them some guidance on how to use the blank notebook.
yeah, yeah, or even like the first couple pages, or have like a chapter
That's
with it,
one
like
way
a
to
book
do
and a workbook together almost.
it. Right,
That would be a
right. And
cool.
but then it also bothers me because it's like, okay, how do I set it up? Like, what if you want your dream to be 8 pages long, you know? Like, and there's not enough pages, and some dreams are only like one paragraph. So that's why
Yeah,
I'm struggling with that. Like, that's why I think I'm just gonna do a blank notebook. But I mean, it obviously there's lots of ways to do it.
yeah, and then you could add tips and tricks. That was something I wanted to do, like throughout the book or the journal or whatever, or even in the front, probably the front, but like that would make more sense than having to go through the journal to find the tips and tricks.
Right, right.
Yeah,
They
right.
have there's some out there that are similar to that. There's some good ones out there actually.
I have never looked at a dream journal. I just always use blank paper,
Me too. Me too, but
but
I
at the
see them
same
on
time, I do see how it's a good way to teach. Um, at the same time, maybe even like trying to teach some basics on symbolism, what that
Mhm.
would be, or how to relate to it and try to figure it out.
Right,
Um,
right.
because a lot of that's overwhelming at first, and people are writing their dreams, but they tend to, like, when I started doing it for myself, I was just writing them down and I was noticing certain patterns, but it really wasn't until like almost a year into that process where I really started seeing and just figuring it out. And it was like light bulb moments constantly, like, oh,
Mhm.
there's a pattern here and this thing and this theme keeps coming up, and and it may
Yeah,
look different, but it has the same flow of energy or the message with it. And yeah,
exactly.
it's so like,
So how
you
thick
learn
is
as
the
you go.
dream journal gonna be for someone if like because I have like 3 or 4 over the course of a year.
You would really like. Have you ever heard of the book No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz? The
Only
internal
from you
family system.
mentioning it, and I've been
Okay.
meaning to look it up.
You have to. You're gonna love it. It's a really great book, but it kind of reminds me of like it definitely has like Carl Jung at the roots of it with the whole like psychoanalyzing yourself into different parts. But he also talks about how experiences and trauma throughout life we can manifest inauthentic aspects of ourselves, or ones that don't belong to us, and they still appear in your dreams. So when you're looking at the voices of your dreams, you could figure out which internal part that's specifically coming from, or where it would
Mm,
stem from, and it's fun, and it even has meditations kind of like, and it's really organic, it's not hard. So, but you could figure out how to meditate and like kind of tap into your own internal family system and see where, like if you're feeling sad, where what part of yourself is feeling sad? Is it your
yeah,
feminine nature, your inner child, or is it a multiple, like where the hurt's coming from and stuff?
yeah, that too. That's important.
You'll love it. I wish I would have came across it a couple years sooner because it would have been way easier to like work through my process at the beginning if I would have known that. So like
Right.
I learned it from my clients, which is cool. But like I was like, man, when I found this book, I was like kicking myself. I was like, God, this is such a great book. I wish I knew this stuff
Mm,
sooner. It'd been way easier.
me too. Me too. I already wish I knew it sooner. Um,
Yeah, it's just really gives you a good perspective of what's going on with the family inside.
have you ever like do you work with your kids with dreams? Like have because I haven't quite got into it with them yet. I mean, we talk about it here and there and they know how I am, but I haven't really worked with them. I think I'm really thinking about like digging in with them and like I read with them every night, at least the younger ones, not the 14-year-old, but I read with the younger ones. And like and maybe I could get the kids I could give them a journal and get them to start tracking their dreams and really start pushing it on them.
The journal would be a good idea. Just self-reflection and self-awareness too.
Yeah.
My oldest talks to me about his dreams. Maybe not like every day, but he goes through phases where he'll talk about them a bit. And he's been having nightmares about Pennywise for like 2 years. So he'll tell me about his nightmares, and
Mhm.
like I'll give him tips and tricks, or like I don't downplay it, but I'm like, feed him some ice cream and he'll die, or like
Right.
tell
Don't
him he could be a superhero, beat him up and win type of thing.
right.
And it's like a really interesting because he's never seen the movie, but obviously he sees it around culture, and he
Exactly.
definitely knows who Pennywise is. Uh, but he does talk about his dreams, and like I know I talked about that shared experience. I think
Hmm.
I talked about that last time I was on here, I think, with you,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is always a good one. But then like
Interesting.
he's even told me in the past that like he's a ghost at night and he can see us all sleeping in our beds.
How old
So
is
that'd
he?
be like out of body experiences. And
How old is he?
he's 5, but he told me that like a year and a half ago. And I
Okay.
realized about the age of 3 or 4, I think they tend to is what so far what people think from like studies and just dream studies, right? They think kids start experiencing certain things around that age,
Right.
with more development and
Yeah.
whatnot. Um,
Yeah. And nightmares especially. Kids have more nightmares than adults do, statistically.
yeah.
So
And it kind of would make sense on that level that they're not
okay.
just having their internal emotional expressions, but they're probably also experiencing. Because I've had dreams where I felt like I've seen them out in that like astral realms a tad bit, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing here? You know, stalking me
Just
by
have some
day and
bones.
night.
That's true. That's really
Uh,
true.
no, it's really
Mhm.
interesting though, and like I'm sure he hears me talk about some of this stuff because like they understand, kids do, but it's just really interesting the way he describes it, and he'll
Yeah.
tell me about his wins, his losses. We'll talk about the dreams, and I have a few other friends who have older kids even, and they'll talk about their dreams. So I do think it's interesting because there's a lot going on, and it's kind of like I know when we first kind of bring awareness to some certain experiences that we're having at night, that sometimes it can be like in the lower realms and people are experiencing like the creepy dark shadows and the weird stuff, right? And
Oh, yeah.
I think that probably kids are also having that same phasing a tad bit, in some cases. So if that's the case, it would be really good to show support and to like be aware of dreams enough to even be able to help your kids with it.
I agree, and there's another benefit of what you do. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like when people ask the standard question, why do we dream? The age-old question. It's like, and they expect a simple one-sentence answer. It's like I want to ask them, why are we awake? Can you give me a simple answer to that? Because the answer to why we dream is just this. Yeah.
That's just what I say. It's like we have a brain, it works, it's a motor. Like,
Right.
I've
Right.
had people suggest on Facebook that they don't dream or that testing says people don't dream. I was like, I'm
Never.
sorry, are you brain dead? Like you have a brain, right?
Yeah.
And it's working. I was like, you're dreaming.
No. Listen, no testing that I've ever seen, and I've looked for it too, because I always look for the counter argument. No testing shows
I don't
that
even I don't even look at them. I just
I'm
at
telling you.
this point I kind of just know. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
I'm telling you. And if they're not dreaming, then they suffer from severe insomnia, and they're probably going dreaming
Yeah,
is
and
fundamental to life.
yeah, and we do kind of get real dull with it, and like a little lazy in the memory.
Sure.
I always say
Sure.
trying to remember your dreams or having awareness or lucidity in your dreams is like building a muscle. You don't just show up to the gym and like do your best workout ever, right? You like work your way into it.
100%.
Yeah, I was like, it's something you work out.
And if you fall out of the habit, it gets weaker, and you can fall away from it. So you have to keep feeding it. Yeah, just like working out. I mean, the brain is a muscle, so.
Right. And like there's times where I've ignored my dreams or, I'm working on other people's dreams so much that I kind of neglect mine. Like I went through a phase of that, right? And it's tedious, it's exhausting. There's times where I analyze the dream while I'm dreaming.
Right.
And then I kind of forget it later after I wake up, but I remember like certain key things that I had came to a conclusion on.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool, actually.
Like multitasking. The brain is a very interesting space, especially dreams and the way we view. And it's funny because like, what's the difference between the dream and the sleep? Really, when you think about the brain function, there is no difference, right?
I
It's the
talked
same
about
thing
that
during
last
the day
time.
and the night.
Well, yeah, then there's the age-old question of why do we sleep? Because like as far as evolution goes, it's not a good thing. Like we're unconscious. We leave ourselves, susceptible to predators. Like sleep doesn't seem to be a good thing. You think that like natural selection would have worked it out of us by now. But if anything, it's made it more prominent. So it's obviously fundamental to our evolution. The question is why? Now, I talked about this a little bit last time, but like our body doesn't regenerate just when we're sleeping. The most regenerative stage when we're sleeping is when we're in that dream stage, just past the delta stage.
Run off, yeah.
Well, yeah, you hit slow wave sleep, and slow wave sleep is very beneficial, and we also dream in slow wave sleep. But then you hit REM, and that's when you're really dreaming. And they wonder, like, why is our body burning calories when we're supposed to be regenerating? Because your body's burning calories when you're dreaming. There's got to be a reason for it. Your body doesn't burn calories unless it has a good reason. Because it knows, calories are precious and it saves them for any type of emergency situation. So biologically, like we're trained to, our brain is trained to hold those calories when it can, but for some reason it chooses to burn them. There must be a fundamentally necessary reason for it. And then that's when they come up with, science comes up with all different types of, they've got threat simulation theories. They used to think we only did it so that we can replay things from our everyday life. So, like if we need to get away from a predator or something like that, we train ourselves and we learn how to survive better in our dreams. That's one theory, but obviously there's so much more than that. There's the social, what is it? Some social stimulation theory, they call it. And that's where like they think that we do it so we can work out how to interact better with people socially. So at night we dream, things like that. But then there's visual preservation theory. That's an interesting one where they say like You know, our eyes, like obviously seeing is very fundamental to us as humans. Uh, if you don't use your visual cortex, it gets weaker. They realize this because if people are blindfolded for long periods of times, their frontal cortex starts to shut down in that area, and you know, over time we would develop less and less sight. So they think that at night the only reason we dream is so that our visual cortex can be stimulated, so it doesn't, you know, evolve its way out, kind of. Which
Interesting.
it's all very interesting, and there's so many other theories too, you know. But like, I don't think, again, I don't think there's just like there's not one reason for us to be awake. There's not one reason to dream. You know, biologically, in biological evolution, it's like if there's one trait that we have that we recently evolved and adapted to, there's usually one specific reason for that. But anything that we've been doing for a long, long time usually has multiple reasons layered on top of it. So I don't think, I think, and I still think there's some validity to what Freud says about dreams just being unfulfilled desires. Not just being, but some dreams,
Yeah,
I
it's
believe, are
yeah.
stimulated.
There's a lot
Obviously,
going on in the dream space. I mean, that's a file cabinet just waiting to spew out whatever it's thinking about.
right. Helen said, I find it's easier to remember dreams if I wake up naturally, not by a racket in the house. My mind immediately jumps to what's that noise, and the dream is gone.
That
She
makes
just started her journal. Nice.
that's cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right, right. You get distracted and you go into that fight or flight mode, and you know the endorphins are going and the dream's gone. I could see that.
Well, a lot of dreams disappear pretty quickly, anyways. I wish it does suck a little bit 'cause it's like, why? This
It
is why
does.
I want to do the hypnosis point. Where I'm
Right.
like, we're just gonna force it back to the surface.
That's why I've been fascinated with these recent studies of two-way communication with dreamers. You know how I said like when they're asleep, you'll tell them before they fall asleep, you know, make sure, you know, we're gonna ask you questions and look up twice for yes, look down twice for no, you know. And
Yeah,
then
that's
they do,
interesting.
there's hundreds of experiments with this. They ask them math problems, they ask them what they're seeing. You know, there's two-way communication with dreamers. You know, it's
Yeah.
fascinating, and you could probably do that through your hypnosis if you had the right session. Like you might need an electroencephalograph or something, but to measure the brain states, that would be very beneficial. But either way, like the possibilities are endless. I really believe that, like, you know, we spend so much time dreaming. It's fundamental. Oh, that's the other point is that I was gonna say is that like if you let, I said this last time, if you let people get lots of sleep, but you deprive them of slow wave sleep and REM sleep, they still won't get the benefits of sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they cut off people's dream states, people wake up feeling unrested, and I mean you'll literally work yourself into psychosis and eventually die. You need, so it's not just sleep that we need. It's that actual dream state that's fundamental to our life.
Yeah. Yeah, the deep sleep space.
And you can't,
Now that is interesting, but it makes sense. I mean, it's like trying to, even though the even though the computer system, the brain, right? If I refer to it as a computer, even though it's still running at all times, there are like certain things that have to be like exited out of. Uh,
right,
and
right,
and if you don't do that, I would imagine it just turns into a nightmare. Um,
right. I don't think we can fully delve into dreams unless we're unconscious. So it's like, why do we sleep? Why do we do something that seems ridiculous, you know, not safe? It's so we can tap into that other side, you know, and that other side, I really believe it's the other side of the coin, you know, it's two sides of the same coin. You can't look at them both at the same time, you know. You might kind of
yeah,
catch a glimpse of the edge and stuff, but you can't be fully view both sides at the same time. It's just not. It's. I don't think it's. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I do. It really brings up a lot of interesting topics like dreams in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like why it's one of my favorite ways.
And then I had to mention the worst theory that I can't stand. It's called the activation synthesis theory, I think they call it, which is just a fancy name for like the worst theory of all. And that's just that our dreams are just random neurons firing off, just almost like haptic feedback from our day, But
Well, that's
that's
also a thing too. I mean, but it's not the only thing that's happening.
right.
But and I would say you're processing your daytime, you're processing your emotions, your experiences. Depending on the person and what's going on in their life. Someone who has a lot of drama or a lot of stressful things, you see a lot, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I've noticed that when you are experiencing a lot of these high emotional states and it appears in your dreams, like especially if they're like negative or traumatic or something, a negative experience, I've noticed that it almost blocks and clogs the airways up to where you'll get stuck in all that emotional dream phases too, that you might be missing out on some of like the cooler, trippier ones, the
Mhm.
next layer of consciousness.
Right. You gotta break through them, yeah, or get,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's why it's important to have emotional regulation. So I think dreams help with emotional regulation if you understand that you can do that with that and how to do it without it taking over and just being like wild emotions all over the system.
'Cause they're very emotional. A lot of people, so a lot of people don't even recall the actual scenes of their dreams. A lot of people just recall the emotions when you start to ask them. I'm sure you've experienced that. Like they might
That's some of the
have
first
a
questions
scene.
I'll ask to try to pull a memory trigger or
Mhm.
something, or to start talking about it and how it made them feel. And they usually start to remember bits and pieces. And they're like, oh, yeah, there was a this, or there was something like that. And it
Right.
starts to feel in a little bit,
Feel
not fully.
your way through it instead of thinking your way through it, kind of feel your way through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Uh,
there's also that, and that kind of like you're saying with memory, there's I think they call it the consolidation theory. Maybe I might be making that one up, but either way, there is a theory that they say it's because if when we see things throughout the day, we're not going to remember anything. So they think that our dreams are just our brain kind of picking out different points from what we've experienced to kind of reenact them, even if it's not the exact same thing. It gives us the same principles behind it to help it lock it into our memory more.
yeah,
So I think dreams are all of those things, or they can be
it's
any combination.
all the above. Yeah,
The
I was like, it's
combination.
not just one definition; it's all of it.
Right.
And that's the cool part. That's why I always say I break dreams down into like a metaphorical experience or a metaphysical experience. And those are my two
Mhm.
categories, which are very large categories, really. If you think about it, you
Right.
can dissect that in a million different ways. Um, but that's the cool thing about it. So, like, that's what I always say when people are like, oh, I have weird dreams, just the weirdest stuff that makes no sense. And I kind of giggle because I was like, then I find out, like, are you watching TV before bed? Like, what are you putting in? Because that's what is going to be used. If you know what I mean. So it's like it makes sense when you understand like whatever you're putting into your brain, if it's TV or YouTube or video games, whatever, your brain will use it to be a part of this symbolic language or symbolic alphabet, whatever it needs. It's material to be used.
True. And one of the main reasons we know that is because older generations, the much older generations, and people back in the day used to dream in black and white a lot more than color.
That's
But
so
people,
interesting.
but these days, not so much. It's very rare these days because,
See, I would love to actually see dreams on a large scale like that. Because right
Mhm.
now I'm just working with a lot of people who are obviously are alive and experience stuff now and are younger. But to not even just go with this era, but like how you were saying with the Egyptians have their dream logs still. I think that would give
Right.
you a very big picture of the mass collective and through the
Yeah.
individual perspective of what the culture and life was back then, and
Yeah.
maybe even see points of evolution in the dreams a little bit.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
that would be really cool. I'm not gonna lie, that'd be awesome.
Isn't that exciting?
Your
Yeah.
dreams say a lot.
Yeah. I mean that's an incredible thought, and that's why I mentioned the Egyptians because I want to read through the thousands of dreams and compare them, and then compare them to the data that you might have, and then, compare that to older generations and just cross reference, and find patterns and symbols, and geez.
Yeah, and we get a glimpse of it through art, right?
Oh,
Um,
oh
but
man,
to
yeah.
have it be actual dream logs would be interesting. But so I think art is as close as we get with that a little bit, unless, there were cultures that were actively writing down their dreams and it's there. So maybe we'll be one of the first ones again that maybe in a long time to
Yeah,
bring that up, bring it back.
that's
Like when I
interesting.
die, go take my books to the library place, the dream, or the technical dreams.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's exciting.
It would be very interesting. That would be interesting data for sure. I think we would learn a lot just as a civilization if we did that.
I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary for us to take the next step in our consciousness, collectively as a human species. Honestly, we need to. We can only go so far technologically. Like
Yeah.
we need to find a balance here. I used to be very anti-technology and very anti-social media and stuff. For me, it's really only been like the last year or two that I've really been taking it seriously and doing this. So
Yeah.
I do
Um,
appreciate it, but we need more.
yeah, there's a lot going on. So I've noticed with dreams, like what I label like a metaphysical experience, there's a lot of like universal knowledge. There's a lot of good and bad, right? I've come across the demons, demonology pops up a lot.
Oh yeah.
But it's also like ideas of like angels and positive entities. And God, there's just so much going on. I can't, I'm not trying to lose thought of where I was going with all of that. But with the mass collective, special abilities. That comes
Mm.
up a lot. And I've had my own personal experiences that I'd like to even share so other people get to hear it too. But
Yeah.
like, so this is something I'll mention in my third book, which I'm still working on the manuscript. But these dreams fall under like my third eye and crown chakra work that I was doing the last year. And it was wild. So for 3 months earlier this year, for 3 solid months, it wasn't every night, but it was often. I would have dreams and with my guides. Now I don't always dream about my guides. I might notice that they're around or there's a support of energy, right?
Mhm.
They're not necessarily trying to make it about themselves, so it's not like they're not flashy with it.
Yeah.
But like, so I was having dreams where they were putting their hands on my eyes like this while I was sleeping, and they told me I had to use my third chakra and look through my third chakra. And they did it for a long time. And like after a while, I was actually finding myself doing it while I was sleeping. So I know I'm consciously aware that my eyes are closed, but I'm like looking at my ceiling or looking around my room while I'm
Yeah.
sleeping in the States. And I don't know, it was really interesting. And they didn't, after a while, they stopped appearing and doing it. And it was just me staring at my ceiling in the middle of the night randomly sometimes. So I'm like, okay, now I need to get a digital clock so I can look at the clock and then wake up,
You
double
do
check.
have to do that. Please do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And it doesn't happen like all the time, but I've noticed during certain phases where I'm extremely lucid that it does. And like I can kind of control it a little bit in that sense. But it's not something I'm like actively working on daily.
Hmm.
But and then we've had other clients where they have dreams about premonition or visions or how they're able to pick up on stuff right before it happens.
Cognitive
Someone
dreams.
described it as like spidey senses a little bit, and I was like, okay.
Hmm.
I realize it's, there's a lot going on with that. So I like the last time we were on a live, we were talking about a spiritual evolution or revolution. And
Right.
I
Right.
think that would be really interesting to see people embracing stuff like that and actually maybe practicing.
Me too. And that's why I wish they would continue the studies with DMT, because when you were experiencing that third eye, you probably, I'd be willing to bet anything, you probably had some measurable amounts of DMT flowing through your body at that point, because your your pineal gland is producing DMT, and when you tap into it more, it produces more DMT, and that creates a lot of these wild experiences that we have inside of our heads.
Yeah, and like the thing is, DMT is, I think, produced in several spots of our body. We got them in our
Hmm.
lungs, I think in our
Hmm.
blood, right?
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
the pineal gland.
Right.
Um, which I usually refer to like the DMT and the pineal gland because like historically that's been the little acorn, the third eye, and
Right.
it's very fascinating. But like people have some of these experiences even doing the breath work exercises and stuff where they induce the DMT. And I'm like, I've not done that before, but I hear it's pretty powerful still.
They call it the spirit molecule for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah, the government shut that down fast.
Interesting, right? Yeah.
I actually have one of his books on my desk right now. This one. Ooh, this is perfect. I'll show everyone. Okay, so I got this on Amazon, and he's talking about Inner Paths to Outer Space by Rick Strassman, and he's co-writes it with some other person. But
that's better. Yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
and it's got some cool artwork in it. I've seen these guys before I ever even got this book. I was like, when I saw it in here, I was like, oh, I've seen those before. Crazy. You know what I mean? And they got some cool stuff.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a condition called aphantasia? I recently learned about this. It's when people can't visualize things in their mind.
I have not. That word sounds slightly familiar, but I wouldn't have guessed
Well,
like what the definition of it is.
it's from the word fantasia, and fantasia is to visualize, and aphantasia is to not be able to visualize. And then there's prophantasia, is where you're like really good at visualizing. And then there's like hyperphantasia, where you can like literally make yourself hallucinate. But someone recently asked me about that. How are you on the scale of visualization?
I've always been pretty good at it. And I think it's an imagination thing a little bit too, but I've always been good at like like just randomly I could do it in dreams, but like even as like a daytime thing, like I could sit there and visualize. I used to play the violin when I was younger, but I was a lazy student. So I wouldn't practice and I would visualize practicing before I go in, right? And then I would do it pretty well. Was the idea of inducing muscle memory or practicing it, right? And I know a lot of people do that with sports even, or if they're trying to do something like, right? That's a popular example.
Very well documented scientifically that stuff helps for sure.
Yeah. So I feel like if you're able to do that, you're probably pretty active. And like when I talk about like remote viewing, I sometimes take it to some of that same space because I realize it has a lot of imagination involved with it. But so this is how I would describe like that aspect. If you're trying to remote view, which I don't practice it that much anymore. I used to do like way more last year. But I've noticed like say if you're on the phone with someone, you're just talking, right? And like in the back of your mind, you are picturing what's their environment maybe is.
Right.
If you lean into that, don't overthink it. Just lean into it and start picking out some stuff. You work it out like a muscle a bit like that too. And that's the best way I could describe like how to lean into that. So I always say the underplay imagination is like child's play. I was like, but there's a lot that goes in with imagination, and it's a huge part of a lot of these tricks.
Yeah, that's why I feel kind of like someone, because when I first started making videos, I'm like, what can I make content about? Someone asked me about visualization, so I started making visualization tips. The videos are horrible, but it was a year ago, and it was kind of when I first started. I'm so someone reached out to me, and he's like, what about aphantasia? He's not able to visualize. And I looked it up, and it's a term that was just recently they just recently came up with it in like 2017, I believe. So there was never a name for it.
That's really interesting. Is it like it's something defective or is it quite normal?
Well, apparently so from what the internet says right now, they say only 3% of the population has it, so it's like super rare. But at the same time, maybe they just don't know. From what I've heard and from what I've been reading, a lot of people don't realize that they have that. I don't want to call it a condition because I don't think it is. Again, I think it's just like I think you can work your imagination, and I've recently found that some people have been able to overcome it by different types of exercises.
Yeah, like brain exercises and stuff, I'm sure, and maybe even foods probably help a little bit. Some
Yeah,
foods.
of course. But there's a few, and I'm gonna actually be making videos about it now because this guy asked me about it, so I wanna help him. I'm gonna give him as many resources as I can, but it's
Yeah.
still very new. And
So then this where the whole some people don't dream comes from? Are these people
right,
who
well,
dreams?
no, so from what I've understood, a lot of these people who have aphantasia, they either say that they can visualize, they see things in their dreams, which gives them hope, or some of them
Okay.
don't see things in their dreams, but they experience feelings and sounds and smells, and they can wake up and tell you something that happened, but they don't remember any visuals from it. So they still dream.
Okay, so the subconsciousness still does its job, but the consciousness cannot do it. Like they're tripping over I would imagine the consciousness isn't figuring it out or it's overthinking it. And like I always say, the conscious aspects of our souls will trip over its own feet, right?
Right.
But the subconsciousness is a pro. It knows.
For sure. For
So that's
sure.
why I'm like, you tend to have to relax or even in meditation, consciously relax and let whatever slips out of the subconsciousness.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, that's just something interesting I wanted to mention to you that I'm gonna be working on now because it blew my mind. I feel bad for people that can't visualize.
Yeah, but it makes sense, I guess, because like the brain is very unique, and there's a lot of different styles of brains and all that, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm gonna listen whenever you record those. I'll check it out.
Yeah, some of them and some of these people are like full grown and they've never been able to do it. And they like the one guy, well, so when they came up with the term in 2017, it was from a very like some famous architect who was really good at visualizing and drawing his stuff. And then he had some sort of brain injury that after or maybe he had to get some sort of surgery, and after the surgery on his brain he couldn't visualize anymore. And that's when the doctors started looking into it and testing people. And so, and then there's some people who say they've never been able to, and there's other people who say that, they got a concussion and they haven't been able to ever since. So,
That's scary. Now, the damage part, that would make sense. That's why I was like, that's scary. Yeah.
well, but with neuroplasticity, even that architect was able to not fully recover, but he was able to start to visualize things over time, the more he worked on it.
That makes a lot of sense. I love neuroplasticity. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite topics when it comes to like the neurons and how the brain can heal itself, or even have the phantom arm or something. You know what I mean, like the
Hmm.
phantom legs and stuff.
Yeah.
That would make sense with it
Right.
being kind of like the route you would probably have to take to try to switch something back around like that, or to even recreate it within yourself, or to create it for the first time. It's
Yeah. And
connecting neurons and
that's
building.
I feel like some of the people who can't do it, maybe like, or that they've never done it, maybe their brain just never leaned in that direction, and because it never did, like it's like if you had a limb that you never used, it's just going to be weak and worthless.
Yeah.
So you have
Or
to become aware of it and work it a little bit, you know?
that would make a lot of sense. I don't. Yeah, that's interesting. Like this is a very interesting topic, really. But it makes sense, really. So it's like a good one.
Yeah, and if you Google it or if you ask ChatGPT or something, they're gonna say there's no known cure for it. But I've already read probably more than 20 anecdotal stories and seen the videos of people talking about it, saying that they've been able to get better. Different variations. Some people only get a little bit better and whatever, but there's definitely some room for improvement. I don't like how, the medical community wants to call it a condition, give it a name, and then I'm afraid that like, they're probably going to come up with some sort of pill to give people, to whatever. I don't think any of that's necessary. I don't think it's a condition, like, or call it what
No,
you want.
especially if you have neuroplasticity in mind on it. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yep, it's like the placebo effect, very in depthly.
right, right. But you know how big pharma doesn't really like to acknowledge neuroplasticity or the placebo.
Obviously. Uh, if I recall, one of the biggest things with, because I was reading some books that was talking about the history of pharmaceuticals, and like really why the antidepressants and all these things, they were just trying to come up with something to help with PTSD.
Right.
And nothing ever even helped with PTSD, even still
Right.
today. And but then they started giving the medication to people who were depressed or housewives or, you know, throughout the years, different groupings. And, you know, but it was a big ordeal, and like it really was helpful for like the insane asylums. I think that
Sure.
did kind of help with the insane asylum aspect, went down in huge percentages.
Sure.
But
I
those are
think
like
there's a
really
place,
extreme cases, though.
right. There's a place for everything, just about everything, you know. So all those drugs have their own place, but it's just obviously when they're getting pushed on millions of people, kids are out in the streets selling them, and like we all know how that went. Like it's no good.
Yeah,
Sure, and I'm not.
and people, but I don't think children should be on it at
Never,
all.
never, never.
I
No.
just feel like that would mess up brain development and emotional regulation and self. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, of course
you
it
would
will.
be messing up development on several levels with that.
I agree. I agree. That's crazy. It's insane to me. I've seen it. I mean, we've all witnessed it. I'm sure we all have stories, you know. If not
Yeah.
directly, then, you know,
I was on
someone that knows.
I was on antidepressants for like 2 weeks after I had my first son. They're trying to help it with postpartum, and it was the
Sure.
worst. I stopped taking it. I was like, no.
There you go. And again, I do think they can have their place. It's just, you know, 90% of the time, it's not necessary.
We're very capable. If we just have to realize that
Yeah.
and have confidence in it.
Yeah. Modern medicine has a diagnosis for every personality type. That's what I always say. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are, they will find a diagnosis for you and find a medicine for you, you know?
Yeah.
That's
That's why I like the dream analysis space, because we talk about some really far out there topics and things. And sometimes I laugh. I was like, this is not something you would tell your psychologist or your therapist.
right, right. You would be quiet about something like that.
You feel a little crazy so quick. I was like, sorry, the what is it, the DS5 or DSM-5 does not allow metaphysical experiences.
Right, right. Helen said that people with aphantasia would not enjoy fiction as much as the rest of us. The one guy that I was listening to said that he enjoys reading fictional novels and he doesn't picture it. He can't picture the scenes, but he can still experience them, you know, chronologically and put things together in their mind, which is strange to me. It's tough for me to grasp, but the one how did the one guy explain it? He explained it like he explained it almost like how you experience the lyrics in a song. He's like a lot of times you're feeling the lyrics and you can understand them and go through them, but you're not visualizing it. You know, he said it's similar. That's similar to when he was reading a fictional novel. You know,
Mm.
he said I still experience, I still get joy from it. I know what's going on logically. I'm just not picturing the scenes. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah. Very interesting. I'm sorry. I just noticed that she said that. I missed that comment before.
No, you're fine. I can't see much on the cell phone screen, so
It's hopeless.
a little bit.
Uh, okay. So Helen also, so she had a question before that she wanted me to ask you. Well, she had a dream. Let me see. Okay. She said she wanted me to share her dream with you and see how you feel about it. She said she had a bunch of animals in her living room, her two chihuahuas, a bear, a baby tiger, and a horse. And they were all calm, but they kept moving around. Her major concern was trying to get them all on the couch and take a picture. Finally got them all on the couch at once, and she got her picture. I asked her how she felt. She said she was very calm, just annoyed that the animals wouldn't get on the couch at the same time, but calm. And she finally got her picture and she felt accomplished. And then she woke up. That's fun.
cute. I like it. That can mean several things. I can't tell you exactly because I don't know you personally or, talking about
Right.
your life and stuff. But it could represent maybe something you're going through with an environment. If it's people externally that you're experiencing, maybe they're represented as animals a little bit. Or it could also be like your internal family system, which would be that book, The No Bad Parts. Trying to show like your internal system kind of co-collaborating and existing within itself and wanting to get like a family picture together. Those were the two that stood out to me.
So the animals could represent people in her life, or they can represent different aspects of her own personality or subconscious, or
Yeah.
right.
And
That'd be up to her.
yeah, that have to be because I don't know, like, if that which one resonates the most.
Right.
Like,
You don't
a
know.
whole house of a bunch of people living together. That very well could feel like that symbolically.
Or do these people come around a lot, but she's not able to organize them all together the way she would like to? Who knows?
Or it could be an experience, something at work or a project she's working on, and it feels like a little crazy, maybe. Or
Right.
we could even say it represents like ADHD, maybe. You know what I mean? Everyone's different, so that's why when I do sessions, really dig deep into how it makes you feel. We talk about what's going on in your life, anything that's stressing you out or you're experiencing that's on your mind. We cover a couple areas, really trying to pull it out. But I always say it's whatever resonates with the dreamer, because that's where the light bulb aha moment and I can't tell you it to be right or wrong. It's going to be up to the dreamer.
Yeah, no, I try to make that very clear to everyone here that like we're not those types of gurus that do direct dream analysis, because that's just nonsense. But and it's all nuanced and complex, and you have to know someone and know the people in their life, but you can guide them on the foundations of some of the symbolism enough for them to work it out themselves.
Yeah.
I think you explained that really well before.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing with my workshops. It was just supposed to be a space where we come together, we explore symbolism, you take a few tips and tricks and some new understanding home with you and self-apply, and then come back later if you want to keep evolving with it, basically.
That's the other thing. Yeah, keep
You can do it
dreaming.
on your own too. You don't have to have a coach. It just would be easier.
Of course, she could keep dreaming and compare that dream to some of the dreams before it and the dreams that follow it too, and try to find common themes.
Yeah.
Or counteracting themes, even if they're not common themes. But
Yeah, and it might not even be the same symbolism all the time.
right.
Sometimes your symbolism can be consistent with a certain voice or an internal part voice, is what I'd say. But it could also be not just the symbolism that's consistent, but the energy or flow. Like there's, three things that happen in a phasing of pattern almost, like being lost in a mall, then being lost in a city, being lost in the ocean, right? Those are all very different symbols, but they still would represent maybe the same thing over and over again.
Makes sense. Everyone's different, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a very diverse language.
Yeah, and it's a language of emotion, like you said, and that's why it's important to remember how you feel and how you felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she said I was trying to get them all to cooperate. Could be people problems to solve. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
It would make sense.
You're welcome, Helen. I saw it.
Yeah. She's awesome. So there's right now I'm trying to like have a go into a lucid dream where I can like meet a bunch of people on a beach that we all agreed to on the last live. I haven't been successful with it yet, but I've been trying to do another one where if I do end up getting lucid, I'm trying to ask. I think I might have mentioned this to you last time. Maybe not. I want to ask people what the time and date is in my dream, and I think I mentioned that to you. Have you ever thought about doing that? And if you do go lucid at some point, can you try to remember to do that?
Yeah, I was practicing this a lot last year. I had a small group of friends who were really good at it. We would do it in meditation or in dreams, but I never really painted exactly the same. I just said it was a way to connect. And like, even though we each had a different perspective of how that went down, we knew that we were actually connecting. That's why I say it's weird how metaphysics is never black and white and it's all within the viewer or the one seeing and perceiving the reality. So like everyone could be experiencing the same thing, but viewing it differently, if that makes sense. Um, so like
Yeah.
it's more in my third book, not so much my second book, where I write about. Oh, I got a couple in my second book towards the end, like meditation moments, and that was some of those practicing astral projecting or connecting. We would try to like share orbs, like a colored orb. Guess what color I handed you? Um, and sometimes they would just experience like someone's higher self, and they would be like showing them parts of who that person is symbolically, kind of like connecting with the soul a tad bit, which would be very like shamanic style of
Hmm.
work too. So like yeah, there's a lot to explore.
I
Uh,
also wanted to ask you about your guides because the first person I ever interviewed on here, he was a guy from Germany, and he was talking about sharing dreams with his friend, which like again I believe it completely, but there's still no, and they've done lots of dream studies, and I've seen a lot of them, and there's still no confirmation. Like it's still people still haven't shared anything that matched beyond like chance, you know? I'm not saying it's not real. And then again, like you said, under that controlled environment, they need to relax a little bit. You're right.
yeah,
But like I've done it lightheartedly with my friends, you know, and like as far as like actual distinguishable evidence, like that confirms it enough to convince me, I haven't seen it, so I'm searching for it. It's something I'm searching for. But this first guy I interviewed, he said the reason I haven't been successful with it basically is because he's like, you'll never do it alone. You need your dream guides, he keeps saying. And I personally, I've never, and I've heard so much about it and read so much about it, and I've asked for it. Even the last time I tried shrooms, that was my main goal, was to contact my guides, you know, just out of curiosity. It's like where are these people at? But and I've experienced lots of different characters in my dreams. Some of them are are very prevalent too, but none of them have shown themselves or revealed themselves to me as any type of guide. I've always felt like my own guide, honestly. And I'm
yeah.
what are your guides like? Because his guide, one of them, the main one that he talked about, it was a walrus, and he said it's because there was a walrus character he was comfortable with when he was a kid,
Uh,
and that became his guide. It is cool, right?
yeah. It's so mine are I don't see them very much, but I know I'm communicating with them and I do sense that I'm never really alone. Now I wouldn't
Hmm.
say I can't go out of body without them, even though I do feel like they're always there, or if I don't sense them, I can ask them to be there, or to help me. Like I have asked for help in the past.
Yeah.
Especially with sleep paralysis.
Hmm.
I only experienced it once, but that weird alien bug that was in that book I showed you guys earlier, one of those tried to come through my bedroom window, and I remember like pushing it out. And then when I went back in my body, I had sleep paralysis. So I kept thinking it was something that wasn't like a positive experience.
Right.
But I remember asking my guides to help me, and I remember them saying like it'll just take a second and you'll feel a pressure release, and like I did immediately. And it was like as soon as it was started, it was over. Um, but then I've also experienced my guides. Um, I don't really see them that much. It's weird. So the last time I really experienced them was when they're putting their hands on me, and that was kind of a unique experience because I've never had them like put their hands on me before. But
Right.
I've gone through phases where I've ignored them, and they went they went to one of my friends who I don't share a lot of my personal life necessarily, right? And
Yeah, I get it.
she had this dream 2 nights in a row where a tall Pleiadian alien guy, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the different races, but he was
Yeah,
Pleiadian.
yeah.
And I always knew that mine were Pleiadian, and it was just weird, but I knew that they had some help on that side. And They showed up twice. It was a 7 foot tall, Pleiadian, long, like white hair, and he was giving her a message specifically for me. And in her dream, she was like, I don't even really know her that well to bring this up. And he's like, well, we're going to keep coming back if you don't tell her.
When you say that,
And they showed up 2 nights in a row.
just to be clear, you're referring to from what they say, the race that would come from the Pleiades constellation, right? Okay, just so people know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Going
we got to get
that's
into
a whole nother
aliens
conversation.
and dreams. I've seen aliens pop up a few times, not just for myself, but even some clients who are not even familiar with this stuff and putting the information in, right? And it's coming out very organic.
Of course,
Like,
and that's when that's a whole nother conversation, because that's what the ancients probably referred to as gods, and you can
yeah.
find all the relations there.
And I know that they exist in the realms. They got the lower and the higher. So I'm not saying they're all good guys. You're just like walking up the street, and if you lived in a city and you're going outside, there's good people and bad people, and you're gonna have all of that, even in that space.
I agree. I agree. Very, very much so. And they can be very manipulative for sure.
Yeah, and a lot to learn. That's why I really enjoy getting into demonology, studying different entities, even the good ones, understanding kind of like the natural laws of science with it all. It's very different, but there's a lot, and I've even seen how it mirrors your internal psyche, or how like certain negative things can get inside your house and use symbolism and still be there without showing what they are, or they can even pretend to be you,
Right.
to an extent. And it's not a disconnected aspect of yourself that's that you show love and awareness to, and it kind of comes back to wholeness within yourself. It's like actual monsters, like that type thing, and they're usually hidden very deep. So it's really weird. And this is why it gets very trippy sometimes with the lane of work, because it's like, okay.
Are they completely external entities? Like, or is it a gray area there,
It's great. You have to really pay attention to what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. Because there are internal aspects of ourselves that are hurt and damaged, and that can appear scary, disconnected, and you'd be afraid of them, right? But you kind of, I don't know, the way we dissect it and follow patterns, it does reveal itself after a while.
Because I asked that guy who was talking about when he was talking about his dream guides and going and sharing a dream with his friend. Now, he wasn't necessarily, he didn't say that he needed his guides to get out of body. He said, because he did explain a different out of body experience he had that didn't include his guides, but he did say how his guides are what helped him connect with his friend. Otherwise, he would have never been able to find his friend.
Yeah. Now that makes sense. Using it as a tool. They're very extremely resourceful. Like, if you can't figure out how to do it yourself, just ask.
And I also asked him, and I'll ask you, like, how much of those guides are, subconscious representations of yourself, and how much of them are like completely external entities?
That's a good question. So I always say your higher self would be like your internal guide, right? And it's like a multidimensional aspect of ourselves, but still a part of our psyche and who we are and our soul. So that would be like an internal guide representation. Then you have your external, and then you do have like negative things that will pretend to be guides. So like I always say the red flag for me in some of those areas is nothing should be involuntarily going into you or coming into your house without permission. And if you say no, it won't. Anything good wouldn't throw a fit over it. They'd respect the space. I've seen that happen a few times, and it's something that I haven't discussed very openly about, but I feel like it is important for people to kind of know, like, some of the attributes that come with a positive or a negative.
Oh, yeah.
How that might look in some of those spaces.
Yeah, there's definitely wolves in sheep's clothing and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I've seen it times this year, actually, through a few friends who have thought something was a guide for a long period of time, and it ended up being very much not a guide and dark. And
malevolent. Yeah.
So I like to dissect it and pick out all the red flags. I'm like, okay, where are the red flags here? I'm like,
Interesting. So,
yeah, I think I talked about it once on Facebook as like false light as a because it's a popular term, but
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that there's a lot. That's a deep hole to go down.
Yeah.
So okay, so then when we're talking about different characters in our dreams being different aspects of our personality and all that, I know, and I might have mentioned this to you before, but like, and I mentioned this to the other guy, and Cliff talks about it a lot, like other characters in our dreams being other dreamers, you know, like in his theory, I'm not saying this, I'm just throwing it out there, you know, for a fun thought experiment, but like if every other character in your dream is someone else experiencing a dream, you know what I mean?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Right?
Kind of just like in real life, like right now.
Right, right. And it's tough because I was like, well, first of all, I'm like, no, because I've shared short videos of this and stuff, but like, you know, you might see something in your dream that like can't. It's like it's like you know, if I'm dreaming about a talking snowman, you know, like obviously that's not a person dreaming, but it's like, who knows? Maybe someone did go to sleep and they woke up in their dream as a snowman, you know? Like I don't know.
That would be endless possibilities.
Endless
Um,
possibilities, right? You can't rule it out. I'm not saying it's true, but you can't rule it out, right?
it does make sense a little bit. I can see
Kind
it from both. And I always say the subconscious, like the way a lot of it's going on with the metaphorical and the metaphysical, they tend to mirror each other really well, like an
of.
energy match even.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so I've explored some ideas or theories just on my own kind of observations and stuff. And that would make sense because we do come across not just, so I always say you have your internal house and then you have outside. Um, and I noticed that there's a door and it works both ways. So at that point, yeah, just like in real life, going in and out of someone's house or going out in the street in public.
Right? So wearing different clothes sometimes, maybe, you know?
Very
Yeah.
symbolic. Yeah.
I'm trying to see something here. Uh, Ellen said Burl Ives. Who is that? He's a musician, music artist, actor who sang and performed. Helen, why did you say Burl Ives in the comments? I'm just curious. Uh, did he write the little drummer boy? Is that what I'm seeing here? Huh.
Frosty the Snowman. Oh.
I don't know, but Little Drummer Boy is my jam for sure. Oh, he sang Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, because he said that someone appears
Okay,
as a snowman, you're dreaming of a
okay,
snowman.
okay. That's right. Maybe he was the one that was the snowman in the dream. Yeah, he was having that dream. Yeah, that's fun to think about. I don't know. I find it hard because, like I said, I used to see Freddy in my dream and I destroyed him. And it's like, if that was someone else having a dream and they were Freddy and they got smashed like that, they got obliterated, you know, that turned into a nightmare for them. Because,
You're like, now who's having the nightmare?
yeah, flipped it on them. Flipped it on them. I just had to grow up a little bit.
No, it's interesting that you have that experience as Freddy Krueger too, because I have a client who has a lot of dark things in like in the first couple months working together, and it all started with Freddy Krueger when he was like 7 years old.
Right?
And it got me onto this topic of archetypes, what creates the archetype, what would be the recipe for an archetype. And we already know
Mm-hmm.
that archetypes are internal psyche aspects, right? But they're also there's this external soul of itself for the masculine
Collectively.
too. Yeah. And but it started out with the Freddy Krueger, and then it just manifested into the shadows, and it was stuff happening in the daytime too. And like the house he was living in, we believe that, was like haunted or had weird activity going on
Right.
where the whole family kind of was familiar or aware of it, not just one person.
Wow.
Um, Yeah, I think I brought it up on Dr. Tula's page because I saw you had that video out and she shared it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there's something going on with this Freddy Krueger. So what is he? Was a fictional character based off of someone who was real, and then he named it after his bully growing up, I think, and then yeah, yeah, things like that. So I thought it was really interesting. I was like, that would just seem like the recipe for a disastrous archetype, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of creepy.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, and then the story is, I know I don't watch Freddy Krueger much, but doesn't he show up in your dreams
That's
in the
what he
movie?
is. He haunts you in your dreams, and you can't go to sleep because he'll kill you in your dreams, and you'll die
Yeah,
in your
that's
bed.
kind of messed up.
But just like Pennywise, he only feeds off of your fear. So if you're not afraid of him, he can't get to you.
Yeah,
He has to scare you, and he has to work his way to get close enough to kill you. You have to be completely engulfed in fear, which
yeah.
I love that concept, and it's yeah,
And it's relatable to how some darker things work too, really. So like anything can be an archetype, really, and
I agree.
it gets really interesting. We have some interesting modern day archetypes now, with the
Yeah.
internet and everyone sharing everything, and it's known on a mass collective scale. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
I've been thinking about that recently because archetypes, they have to change with the culture or evolve at least. It doesn't mean that any of them will ever die out, but they will evolve and more will come and go, just like language. Yeah, and what
yeah.
are we setting ourselves up for in this modern era? What are these archetypes going to be like? It's interesting. The only way to tell is to start looking.
And it makes sense because if we had the records of everyone's dreams for like all of humanity, we would see it phasing per
Yeah,
culture influences even.
but I was thinking back to the Egyptian ones. Like I want to read them and find archetypes that maybe have lasted to this day.
Yeah, like which ones are still prominent. And I realize every culture experiences different. They're specialty ones, right?
Yeah, the same ones and then also different ones. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy, absolutely crazy.
You're just one large conscious bubble of thought.
Yep, yep. Going into and out of itself. It's crazy. Ha- have you ever been hypnotized?
No, I have not
No.
actually. And I really want to have the experience though. Uh, Not just once. I'd like to actually do like a series of sessions and have my own self discovery with it a tad bit. I got a list of things that I would like to like. I already have it like mental list of like certain moments I'd like to go back to and try to pull out because I've noticed that like there's certain points in dreams where I think we block it on purpose. And it doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. It's just like I've noticed that in the past I block certain experiences, and they would be ones with my guides sometimes, or something of higher consciousness level. Um, I've even there was a moment where I walked my grandmother the night she died. I walked her through the like what would we call heaven, that white energy wall, and I walked her through it, and immediately, like I remember everything up until I walked through it, and I nothing at all, right? So I'm like, okay, that would be a hypnosis if I wanted to go
Big
back.
time.
Yeah, and like
Did,
actually pull it out.
did you wake up at that moment, or no? That's just the last thing you remember.
I think that was the last thing I remember. I think I feel like I definitely was still sleeping and I had experienced something in there. Then I've also had ones where I was like having private conversation. It felt like a private conversation with something that was like more higher up than I was. I don't know if it
Mhm.
was my guides. Um, it definitely wasn't like, I don't know. It felt like I had a certain energy to it. And I remember watching myself walk through the door and closing myself out, literally. And I'm like, oh, this is
Wa-
shit.
Like you watch yourself externally, you mean?
Yeah. So I feel like there's a space in our brain that is almost even private, again, where we can't even access it. And I've kind of explored that a couple times. And I've noticed like my inner child was hiding in there for a while, and like I kept trying to open the door and it would like warp DMT on me. So I was like literally experiencing DMT in that phase of sleep where I was lucid. I was exploring my internal house, right? And I kept coming up to this door every once in a while, and I kept trying to open it, and it was pushing me out. So I do think there are certain parts that are private, even for our consciousness, and like I think that would be really cool to explore with hypnosis. And
I
now I
agree.
realize it might pull out some trauma. I don't know exactly what all would be in there. I'd imagine there's a lot, like good and bad, I'm sure. But
It's
it's
sacred.
interesting.
Yeah. I saw that one thing you did with the about the what was it? The childhood. Who was that person? I can't think of her name.
Oh, Sarah Evangeline?
Sarah,
With
yeah,
the
yeah. That was cool. The inner child workshop thing that you did.
yeah.
And now Erica said here in her, she left a comment. She said I think my stereotype is my childhood, or I think she said SRK. I think she meant to say archetype is my childhood house, which I dream about every night because I was born in it. I don't think an archetype,
Not the word, yeah.
that's
Uh,
an individual. I think when we're talking about archetypes, it's more of a collective thing.
a
I mean,
personality or character. Um,
yeah,
what you're
that,
experiencing is what I would call an inner child dream. Things
that's
that
why
take us back to the emotional feelings of when we were a child, or even to physical places. It could be like school, your home,
yeah,
past loved ones, even.
yeah.
You can see a lot. So that would be like definitely an inner child dream,
What,
and those are really important.
and she and then that house, because I know it. It's like it's not far from where I'm at. I've seen it. It's an old house. It has a certain energy to it for sure. It's a big old house, and like she dreams about it all the time. And I know she told me a lot of times she's in the basement of the house, and like so yeah, definitely an inner child dream. And that house itself might just be like a subconscious foundation for her, to there. I mean, there could be lots of different reasons why she keeps dreaming about it, but that's not. I just want to be clear. I don't think that's what we're talking about when we say archetype. It's not like one solid symbol that you keep going back to. It can be collectively. I think personally, for me, I think the archetypes can be, they can be universal, like something that people experience all over the world, the same type of things, themes or symbols. And it can also be like in an individual culture, there can be like American archetypes, I feel like, or things like that, or even within a community. But I don't think it's one thing that one person individually experiences doesn't denote the term archetype. Just to be clear, that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel,
No, that
but
perfect. Yeah.
uh, Helen said private, or is that a form of protection? I think she was talking about your dream. Is that a form of
Um,
protection?
I think that it does both. I'd imagine it works as both.
Right?
I would imagine because, like, we think about it, people who go through extreme trauma and sometimes they block it out or they lose the memory. I would imagine that would be like maybe a similar space,
Yeah.
where it gets tucked away. Um, but I also think that I don't know. I've noticed I was using it as a private room to talk behind
Right.
my own back.
Right.
Like, so I think it probably has a lot going on. But I did notice that I felt like it had something to do because like inner child, that had something emotionally attached to it too at the time, and I didn't realize it was my inner child for a while.
Mhm.
Like when I was a little girl, I used to hide in closets, and it
Right.
makes sense that even as an adult, even though I wasn't hiding from the adults in my life from back then, but now I'm hiding from myself type of
Yeah.
thing,
Right.
or my inner child, right? So it had like much in-depth meaning, but also kind of from experience. But I've also experienced that door where it's had nothing to do with the inner child, and it was just like, what's going on with that door?
Yeah. Yeah. It's mystery.
I can't walk through it.
Hmm. I mean, is that maybe because I mean we know how people block out trauma. We've obviously it's like a survival mechanism because it's like, you know, why will you drive yourself crazy? Like, will you be able to cope and still function cognitively with, you know, whatever that traumatizing experience might be? I don't
Yeah.
know. And maybe like for you personally, like you might have to grow up. Maybe as a little girl you weren't able to process those things. Now you can. I know that's the whole idea behind it. Now you can go back and work through them. But it could be scary, I think, you know? Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be.
No, it's just very interesting and it's ultimately beautiful. It's like a really weird
I agree.
description, but yeah, it's quite the space. That's why I say it really is a self-discovery. And you know, you might not know the answer right away, but give it a couple months and keep tracking it, and you'll really start to see it, and you'll be like, huge light bulb moments. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You're learning a lot as you go.
I've had a lot of those dreams that have brought me back to crazy childhood times to where I almost forgot about them, but then the dream reignites it, and it's like I haven't thought about that or remembered that in years, and I'm like, damn, that really happened, you know? And I'll like talk to my sister and my brother about it and be like, damn, like that's not just 'cause sometimes it gets tough when you're going way back to when you were a little kid. It's like, was that a dream? Did that really happen? And it's like, yeah, you know, you go check there, you know, there's an old hole in the wall, or like, you know, there's like, you know, that this stuff really went down sometimes. And it's like, for me, a lot of times my dreams bring me back to those places. It's never a bad thing, you know. It's just like, damn, like that's real, you know. I'm glad. 'Cause sometimes I'm like, I almost blocked that out completely. Like, that's a big part of me. Like, I did go through that, you know, and I don't regret remembering it. But you know, it's just it sucks. It's tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Really tough.
That's why I say the conscious aspect of ourselves is like this big, and your subconscious and everything else is huge. And we're literally just like can only focus on what we shine the flashlight on, um,
Hmm.
which is a very small stream of light compared to all everything else in the space.
For sure. It's just like it's tough because over time we create a new world for ourselves, you know. We're not that world doesn't even exist anymore for me. But it's like when it reignites all of a sudden, you know, I feel like it could be scary. There could be a domino effect there. Like me personally, I'm okay, but like I've seen it with people and like that stuff will tear them down, you know, and then they start to dwell on it and it's like it's a fragile fragile thing, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a very large computer. Everything's stored and
Mm,
saved. You can't really delete stuff. Uh,
mm-mm. It's in there somewhere.
yep.
Helen, Helen said getting validation that things happened is good, I would think. It is. That's why I say I actually like I don't dislike it at all. I'm always grateful and it's always cool and interesting and it's not always about negative things that happen and even when it is, I'm not like I have no regrets. It's cool. I'm glad I see the light and I remember, like I said, yeah, that's a part of me. Like and it's okay. You know, I can cope with it now. But damn, it's tough, and I feel for some people that can't. You know, and there's people that have been through much worse things than me, and it's like I'm scared for them to discover those things. You know.
Yeah, it can be a lot, but I've realized we kind of have to emotionally process our experiences, and if we don't, it will keep kind of coming up or lingering and coming out in different various ways.
Right.
Like a cup of water, you know, or something with holes with water, right? And it's leaking or overflowing, and it's going to come out eventually. Like it's not one of those. So like I think when you, especially that's probably why the inner child comes up a lot more in dreams, because I think there's a lot that we forget about or was never like reconciled within us, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and that's a big part of Freud's theory. You know, just unfulfilled desires. You know, it doesn't have to. Not that I agree with again. Like I think he was very limited and wrong, but there's something to that, obviously.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like crazy desires for your mother and all that weird stuff. That was one small aspect. I feel like people focus on that too much because that's not all that he believed.
I say
People
it
say,
just as a joke.
I know, I know. I want to give him credit where it's due. You know, there is something to be said about unfulfilled desires and dreams.
He
So
got that first layer of understanding down, right? And from
yeah,
there, Carl Jung was like, what, 20 years younger than him? And he
yeah,
was the one who went after him. So, like, we needed Freud first, so then we could get Carl Jung on this next deeper layer of the mass collective stuff. So there's a lot going on. So, like, and they're both important.
they are. I mean, they are in the sense that Freud kind of opened up the door for modern studies, but then like, you know, Carl Jung took it. He made it so broad that it was all encompassing, and he just left all the doors wide open. You know, from Hinduism to shamanism to
He saw the connection all over the world history. He was like, oh, there's a lot going on here. He was extremely mystic.
and now I think we've reached a point where we have these EEG meters and all of these the potential for controlled scientific studies that have revealed things that we never knew before, like the two-way communication and all that. Like that's the next frontier, you know? Build that on top of the foundations that we have so far, and like possibilities are endless.
It's really interesting. There's a lot of good things to look forward to. You know?
Yeah,
And with like, so Carl Jung, he has his red books and his black books. I have not read them because they're expensive, and I refuse to listen to them on audio because I want to scribble all over the books and write notes.
yeah, I
And
get it.
he did not. So I didn't realize this at first that when they published, he waited a long time to have those published, way after his death. And I think what he asked his family, or what left with instructions with those books, is not to publish them until the world was ready for it.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, yeah, because we wouldn't have known what to do with the information. It would have been just too far out there.
Well, my
He
question is
shares a lot of his own metaphysical experiences and stuff. It was like his journals, right? So it gets really in depth. And the few lectures I've heard on some of the portions of these books, which you can go on YouTube and listen to people talk about it all day long.
yeah, yeah. I kind of have.
I just wanted to get my own fresh perspective. I didn't want to just hear people talking about it. I wanted to get my own lens on there first before I dove into people's opinions necessarily.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see that. That's probably the best approach. The future looks bright. It really does, I think.
I think so.
Right? There was, also Carl Jung, that's what I wanted to say. And I mean, I'm not going to go through it all here. But like there's so many great Carl Jung quotes about circles. Like the circular theory was something that he was fascinated with too, and like he's got so many good quotes. I'm going to start sharing them actually. You'll be seeing them. I'll make like little memes or something.
I've been seeing circles everywhere since we discussed that workshop and like the idea of it. And so it's been like 2 months, 3 months. And I left, I was like, the circle was already important, but now I'm seeing it. And it was interesting because at the end of my meditation, I saw the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I love the Fibonacci sequence, but it was so random seeing it come up in that moment too. So I was like, oh. So I know for me, I'll still be evolving some of my experience with it and like what it actually means more in depthly.
Again, it's going to be never ending. It's going to be circular. Like there's just so much to it. Every time I think I get it, I realize there's a whole new frontier, you know?
Yeah.
Helen said, do a quote of the day on your page. Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. I could come up with a quote every day from some famous thinker throughout history. And, content creation is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Time consuming.
My brain goes all over the place with it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I changed my process with it to be more organic and just on the whim, because every time I try to plan something and stick with it, I never do.
Me too. Yo, me too. Believe me. You're telling me. I'm the worst. And yeah, and my whole family knows it too. That's my sister. She'll tell me. I'm the
Consistently
worst.
inconsistent.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. But whatever. And like you said, it's better to not fight it. You know, I spent so much time fighting it and you get nowhere. It's better to just make the best of it and work with what you got as it is. Find the
Yeah.
beauty in that. I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. Who am I?
No, I know how I go. Keep it simple, keep it organic. Speak from the heart or soul chakra, right? Something that's really, and I like Gary Vee a lot with his tactics on how he uses social media, and he's been doing that since MySpace,
Yeah.
apparently. So like, he's been with it since the social media growth, and like he said, just connect with people one on one. People are going to interact with you more on a personal level than responding to your advertisement sometimes.
Yeah, there's always the quick way out, but it's never long lasting. I think we know that. We understand that. Organic growth is sustainable and more valuable. And that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing, you know. That's why I'm not posting all types of crazy stuff or doing challenges or goofy stuff for attention, you know.
Well, these are consistent. This is good. I haven't done it yet. I join other people's live podcastings and stuff.
You're killing it with that though, and that works too, you know. That's an avenue too. And you're building, you know, the network. The network is building. I see it every day. I'm sure you're seeing it too.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Not
fun.
explosive, but it's effective.
Yeah, it does make it more entertaining. And I feel like, you really connect and meet a lot of people doing that too. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Right? Genuine people too. Like a few people have asked me how I deal with trolls. Even like the one guy at work. He's like, how you deal with all these people talking all this shit on the internet? And I'm like, dude, not that it doesn't happen, and I'm well aware, but like, and as far as this journey has gone, it's been like very like I don't have any issues. Everyone's like really really cool. Nobody
Yeah.
bothers me. I'm waiting for someone to start like for someone to challenge me or something, and be like, oh, you're talking all this nonsense and like try like whatever. I'm down. I argue with myself, so but it doesn't happen. Like it doesn't. It's been so cool.
That's how my space is too. Like I have a lot of like-minded people on there, so it's very supportive
Yeah.
and like people who talk ideas and kind of explore without being cruel. I only had one experience once this year so far, and it was like it's months ago at this point.
Mhm.
But it was this guy that was interacting with my stuff a lot. But then I don't know if he was just in a bad mood or what, but I asked a question because I used to ask just random questions to get people talking
Engagement.
in analytics, right? And I
Right.
asked
Right.
someone to describe an awakening, and I got a lot of stuff on there. And he goes, "Well, if you have to ask, then blah 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 blah." And he gave me so much crap, and I was just like, "Dude!" And then he started talking about how I'm not qualified to do dream analysis, and just really got insulting. And I was like, "All right, you're blocked."
I get it. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Exactly. Yes.
And I was like, "You don't even know me. What crawled up your ass?"
Right. 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 You weren't looking for like life-changing advice. You were curious out of curiosity, asking people. Yeah,
Yeah.
looking for different perspectives. It
And
doesn't mean you
everyone
don't know what it is.
describes it differently. So I just, it's like a popular question. I've asked it several times in the past, just because people like to respond to certain stuff, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always a popular one.
That's a good one. I might take that from you. I don't know.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I get it.
That's the what time is it?
Yeah, I'm
Maybe.
working overtime tomorrow. I gotta get up at 5 o'clock, or I gotta get up at 4:30, be at work by 5:30. So it's almost 12 over here. I don't know where
I'm
you're
on
at,
East
but
Coast, too, so I didn't realize that was 2 hours. That's so funny.
yeah.
Okay. We talk a
No,
lot.
mm-hmm. Um, is there anything else you want to say, or if anyone wants to ask anything, ask it now, please.
Forever hold your peace. Until next time.
I'm grateful for everyone joining us. We've had some steady eyes on this whole time from what I've been seeing.
Oh, good. I think it's a really interesting topic, and we all experience dreams, right? So it should be something we're all curious about, and I like to see it be a popular conversation.
Me too. People want to, people want to talk about a lot of people, like people in my personal life. They, they want to talk about how I obsess over these topics, whatever it might be. Even since I was a teenager, my friends used to be like, "Oh, he's all philosophical on us," like stop with all that. And it's like, you people are sitting around for hours discussing football statistics, you know? Like you guys are watching you guys are watching other people play video games. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I see these people scrolling through Instagram for hours mindlessly. Honestly, the only time I really scroll through Facebook is like it's usually strategically. I very rarely am just like brainlessly looking for entertainment. I'm always looking for like what can I effectively engage with and try to build on this thing I'm working on here. Like it's not about mindless entertainment and like cat videos like some of these other people. So like they could talk all they want about how I'm obsessed with it, but I feel like there's purpose to it,
No, that's good. I don't even really watch TV anymore.
Me neither. Me neither. Not that
my kids have the TV. I do my thing.
Me too.
I think it's nice to be creative, to be curious, to explore, to want to understand and know more. There's so much to it. I think if you're sitting idle all the time and like watching TV and not really using your brain, it's not good.
Like some of these Netflix series are amazing, I'm sure, but I don't have the time. I don't have time for that. Like,
I'll binge like once a year or
yeah,
something, right? And
yeah,
it's like usually a good treat, and that's about it.
right. And like I said, they're great and it's fascinating. And yeah, like get your fix, but then like move on. These people are always looking for the next thing to binge, and they're just binging day in and day out, working towards nothing.
How about this? When I binge watch something, it's because I want to be distracted and I just
Right,
need something to be chill and relaxing and not
right.
using my brain.
And that's valuable and necessary, as long
Yeah,
as it's not the only thing, the main thing that you're doing,
yeah. No, I
Most
agree.
people, most people that I'm referring to, they don't have side projects or side hustles or a passion, a creative passion, or I'm not hating, I'm just saying like, and they should, and I'm sure they could. Everyone's talented and amazing. I'm just saying like these people I know personally, they're not doing nothing. So like the fact that I'm up here doing this, I'm telling you, these people at work, they know every statistic for every player and every team. And I'm just like you people, and you wonder how I know the stuff that I know. Like they're speaking a language that I don't speak. Like,
Yeah, we're all putting our energy into something, It's just what's the intention with it? Are we doing it to be entertained? Are you really curious about it? Or I don't know, everyone's different.
I'll admit I'm guilty. Once in a while, I'll stop on like a UFC, like a fight video. That's my guilty pleasure. I'll watch like two of my favorite fighters, especially if it's an old school fight back when I used to really watch them. But I never let myself get sucked in. After like 5 minutes, I'll boot myself out. I'll snap out of it just because I try to be conscious of it now. But yeah, and like you said, there is a time to wind down and for entertainment. And for me, I experience that through my music, or maybe I'll watch a movie with my kids. That's like the only time I will watch a movie if it's something they want to watch.
Gotta be
You know.
Disney. Yeah, I watch way more kids shows than I do
Yep.
for my own picking.
Yep. Exactly. And there's a lot of stuff I would be interested in. Yeah. All right, Chelsey. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I enjoy it, even though it's super late, but I do enjoy this.
Sorry.
The conversation keeps me awake. At least it gets the brain going.
Good. Good.
All right, enjoy your weekend, everybody. I'll see you guys later.
Yes, I will be in touch with you. Good night, everyone. I'm going to sign out because I got to get up early. So thank you, Chelsey.
All right, yes, thank you. All right, bye.
Bye.